Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Counter. I'm Keith Hancock, alongside with my partner and longtime hospitality industry pal, Christine DeVita.
And welcome to another episode of Behind the Counter.
Christine, how are you today?
Good, Keith. How are you?
Good.
So we got some stuff going on. We're going to talk about recruiting, Chipotle, and how New York has extended its outdoor dining program for yet another year. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff that came over the news the past couple of days. I guess before we get into it, how was your 4th of July?
4th of July was great. Lots of fireworks, lots of popping. We went down to the beach in, what the hell was it? Lewis, Delaware. And it was really nice. You could actually see Cape May, Jersey from there. But I got to tell you, I prefer lighting them off myself.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing better than doing that. Nothing better.
They sell them in Jersey now, but it's child's play. What you can get in Pennsylvania is better, but you got to go to North Carolina for the real stuff.
That you do. I remember when my parents lived in Georgia for a brief period, there were stores everywhere for fireworks, and we had gone down there for like our first 4th of July since they moved there. And I was like a kid in a candy store. I was buying everything.
Mm-hmm. The kind where you pack those balls in the tubes?
Yes,
with the long
exactly.
wicks? Those are fireworks. You can't get those in Pennsylvania or Jersey.
I thought I worked for Grucci that year. I was grabbing everything I could. It was great.
When I was a kid, I was probably a borderline pyromaniac. We used to light fireworks off all the time. All the time. We used to do it on purpose. We used to run down by the police station, and it was a smaller town, so we would set them off right behind the windows of the police station and run up the hill through the woods.
Nice.
They never got us.
Nice. Obviously, because you're still here. Thank God.
Well, I feel like playing Katy Perry's fireworks song now. You gotta ignite. How's my singing? Good? The light. I think she does it a lot better than I do. I think we just lost at least 20 subscribers right there. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely, man.
So anyway, recruiting. That'll extinguish that fire. Because it is certainly a challenge right now, and it's a challenge for, more for us, more for the operators, and people recruiting than it is on the other end. People on the other end right now, this is their time to shine. This is the time where if you're a general manager and you want to take a look at maybe shooting for a multi-unit role because you couldn't have gotten it at your last companies, you just might get it if you're a really seasoned GM and can sell yourself.
There's definitely a lot of room for advancement if you're currently employed right now, because there's so many vacancies in this industry. But what really gets me is how recruiting has changed over the years, I guess, versus from when we would seek recruiters to land positions. And now that, our company is mostly based on recruiting, presents, especially with the pandemic, it has presented some challenges with regards to placements, salaries, ghosting, which is now, a bigger thing. Ghosting started like 2018, 2019. Recruiters started talking about it when we first launched our company. And now it's a little bit more, I guess, noticeable. But I think where we stand out amongst our competition is that, we took away from, our experiences with recruiters, and we wanted to kind of flip the switch a little bit, I feel, with our company. And I could tell you that I remember a couple of instances where I was, interviewing for a position, and I thought the interview went great. From what I felt, the recruiter said the interview went great, and then that was it. You didn't hear from the recruiter. And you were constantly, every week sending an email. Hi, are there any updates? I'm eager to join the company. I really like, their mission and values and how the company is positioned and what their outlook is for the future. And it was always dead space. You never heard anything from anybody. And you kind of just moved on from there and, sought out another recruiter and eventually had landed a job. So we pride ourselves on not being like that. We will sit there if it's not a right fit. for the client or the candidate, I feel that we're very good at communicating, because there's nothing like sitting there knowing that you need a job, right? And you're out there actively looking and you're unemployed, and it's horrible to sit there and just wait. So I think...
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah. And I think when we founded our company in 2018, I think that was like the first thing we spoke about was, I don't want to be that type of company that just has these guys sitting and waiting for an answer. So let's communicate with them as quickly as we can. And if we don't have any answers from our client because it's slow moving or they're taking their time or whatever the situation is, let's keep in constant contact with them so they know that we're pushing for them, or, at least give them some sort of information as to what's going on the back end on why it's taking so long.
Yeah, and that is one thing. I mean, ghosting, it's funny. I'd like to step back on that. It happens so much more. It happens on the recruiter end, or it happens on, and I know it's happened to you and me, when you're in more of, a multi-unit level role, and then you're waiting for this manager to show up, and then they fall off the planet for whatever reason. You never hear from them again. And there's a lot more ghosting that way, but recruiters ghost too. And it is the most unprofessional thing to do that to somebody who's eagerly seeking employment. And it's a two-way street. And maybe it's because we're fresher from the trenches, or maybe we have, a deeper, more extensive view on the inside of operations, as opposed to the bird's eye view that other recruiters are out there when you deal with that or dealing with the people. But, restaurant managers need jobs when they're looking. Most of us are not rich.
Yeah, well, the majority of us aren't rich in the restaurant industry.
Right. So it's like, it's like to do that to somebody, like you said, and it really messes with someone's emotions.
Oh, absolutely. And you have that, you have that anxiety, that panic of going, am I going to land this position? And I think as recruiters, it's our job to make sure that we communicate effectively to all of our candidates, whether they're going to move forward or they're not. And always have a plan B backup for them, because we have a lot of clients right now. So if a candidate doesn't work with one, they have several different other avenues to pursue interview wise. And I think that's where we stand out from the rest, because we're not just going to sit there and talk to you about, one company. We will do the right thing by our client and say, okay, go through the interview process. We think you're a good fit. And if our client, declines the candidate, okay, that's fine.
Right.
But, we always have a backup plan, or not a backup plan, but another client that we could present them to. So these guys aren't kind of waiting in the wings of, going back to work and feeding their families or collecting a paycheck or whatever it is. The object with us is to get everybody back to work as quickly as possible. And I think with, coming out of the pandemic and being in what I call like the tail end of it, a lot of salaried managers are just looking to get back into the swing of things. And it's our duty as recruiters and restaurant professionals, because we've done this, we've been in operations for the majority of our careers. Now we're in the different space with regards to recruiting and consulting and everything else that we're working on. It's our duty to people who were just like us a couple of years ago, to get them employed. This is what we do for a living. We satisfy our clients, and we also satisfy our candidates, because we want our candidates to continue to utilize us, right? And we also want our clients to continue to utilize us. And I think that's a great foundation that we've built around our company, DeVita and Hancock.
And we look out for both, where I think sometimes, maybe people miss the mark on. If we have a ghoster, we don't present them anymore. And if we have, on the flip side, if we have clients that aren't, doing right by them and sticking to their end of the bargain and running professional interviews, we don't represent them either.
Correct.
Correct. That's just how it goes.
You know what it is? Because we have to protect both sides of it. So there's three sides of what I feel that we need to protect as founders of our company. We need to protect our brand, right? We
Absolutely.
need to protect our client, and we need to protect our candidates. And I think sometimes some agencies kind of drift off from that. And for me, I think they're looking at one thing only, and that's just the paycheck at the end of the placement.
Right.
But there's a lot more that goes in that. There's a lot more investment on our part that goes in, that goes into the recruiting piece, and also the consulting piece with us as well.
And you know what the problem is that they weren't thinking big picture, recruiters back in the day, because reality is recruiters got the reputation. Some of them, not all. There are great recruiters out there that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. But some of them turned into door-to-door, old school, like vacuum salesmen, or car salesmen. And
it's
they gave
the whole turn and burn. It's the whole turn and burn mentality.
And they gave that condensation. And now there's a lot of companies that don't use recruiters as much anymore because of it. Because they became like, you're supposed to take this off my plate, and now I got to start managing you, or you're not sending me the right people, and blah blah blah. The people,
right,
with the right qualifications that to reach the job or the project that's open, and that's a problem. And that was kind of short-sighted thinking. But we also remember, and I know you've been there back in 2000 and let's say 5 or 6. You're working with a recruiter, and then all of a sudden, they start handing you jobs, and I've mentioned to you where I'm like, I have said to recruiters back in my mid-20s, like, I would never take that job. So why are you sending me there? I have no interest in doing what this job is, what this concept is, whatever it is. And they'd be like, just go, just go, just go. I'd be like, no, why? Why am I going to waste your client's time, my time, for a job that unless they're going to pay me $250,000 a year, which they're not, I'm not taking the friggin' job.
Right. Yeah. And that's the whole turn and burn aspect, because they just want to fill the hole. And I think that's where we're separated from the rest on a lot of aspects of this whole recruiting business, is that, because we've witnessed or we've been through the pain points of recruiting on the operation end, right? We've kind of tailored our business on easing the frustration and the day-to-day of recruiting for our clients. So we take the bulk of it. And it might take us a little bit longer, maybe a couple of days longer, a week longer, but you're getting candidates that fit the bill, that fit your profile of what you want to, hire. So I think that's definitely what sets us aside, sets us aside from the rest, which I think is a good thing, because, you get a lot of operators like us that try to do this business, and I think they see, the nice windfall at the end. But at the end of the day, our clients put their heart and souls into their business, whether it's a chain restaurant, our clients, or whether it's a small business. And I think that's where we kind of have like the leg up, so to speak, on a lot of these other recruiting firms out there, because we know, and because it's us being in the industry is not that far off. It's like, 4 years working in this industry, and still all the same. People need to get placed. And I remember being a director of operations and hiring a recruiting firm and getting mass emailed 7 to 8 resumes at once.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
Did you even look at them?
Right. I'm paying you 20% based off of this person's salary, okay? I don't really expect to do anything but look at 3 or 4 resumes
that you vetted after you looked at 20, which like we do.
Which is what I hired you to do, and send me people that I'm going to fall in love with, basically, because when you bring on a client, right, as a recruiter, you need to get to know them, and I call that the intimate stage. Like, you want to get to know your client. We want to know what makes them tick. We want to get to know them on a business, on a very intimate business level, because this is somebody that they're going to bring on board and entrust their business with, right? So I need to know everything about you. I need to know everything about your company, right? So when I talk to candidates, or our recruiters talk to candidates, right, we're ensuring that we're sending you the people that are going to fit the personality of the company. As much as, listen, everybody wants to turn and burn and make money, but you need to do the right thing by your clients, because if you just mass email them 7 or 8 resumes at once, what are you really doing? And what type of screening process do you have? I mean, our process is pretty lengthy, and I like it the way it is, because we really take out a lot of the, I guess, the white noise or whatever of recruiting on the client end, and we just take it on ourselves. And I think that's why our interview process is very intricate with regards to recruiting, because the beginning it went to us, to you, from me to you, and then it would come back to me again, and we would make sure that we were 110% like positive on this candidate, and the client was happy. Now that we have recruiters working for us, we train them or we onboard them to have that same process. Just because I'm the CEO, you're the COO, or whatever it is, doesn't mean that we're not going to sit there and interview people. Of course we are. Pass them over to us to do a second or a third, so we're 110% positive that our client is going to be happy.
Let's talk about like internally in the belly of the beast, back to what's happening on the other end. And if there's ghosting that's going on, like you said. There's a lot of challenges to get those clients because, as I think we mentioned in the past episode, a lot of the great people are working. And smart employers are not letting those people go.
Absolutely not.
Because what we're finding is what happened, whether it's a private owner or I was speaking to somebody else from a bigger company, and the exact words were, we kept our A players and used this as an opportunity to get rid of those B's and C's.
Yeah.
And now those B's and C's aren't back. And now they're going to try to get new A players. But to the point is finding people that want to work, and the talent pool and all that is out there, and there's more ghosting involved.
More so because of the pandemic, the ghosting is involved, because now people are really,
there's so many jobs that they want to get the right one.
There is, and so salary plays a really big part of it.
And I'm not knocking them, because let's be honest, I might do the same thing. You know what I mean? If I was unemployed and there was 5 great opportunities out there, I would probably want to put my hat in every rink.
Oh, absolutely.
If I was unemployed right now and looking and doing that sort of thing.
Because there's 2 things that these candidates are looking for. They're looking for the right fit, right? Somewhere where they just kind of want to build their someone who they want to build their career with, right?
Right.
And there's the salary aspect of it. And I think we touched on this the previous podcast. I'm not really sure, and maybe it was a conversation that you and I had offline, was that there's, a district manager or a KM position that would traditionally be paid anywhere between 75 to say 90,000 a year. Let's just say, just to give it a number, right?
Right.
Now you have employees out there that are hiring these guys at these crazy salaries of close to 6 figures just to get people on board. And I think the candidates are picking up on this. And I think they're really just sitting there and waiting to see where the best offer is going to come in at this point. And listen, I don't blame them, because you have bills and you have a family. But I think what they really need to understand is, like, don't burn a bridge, okay?
Right.
If you're not interested in the position, let the recruiter know. Let them say, you know what, I'm looking for A, B, C, and D. This is not it. I appreciate your time. Thank you for engaging with me. And I'd like to keep this relationship open should I need your services, in the future. But the whole ghosting aspect of it just kind of knocks you out of the whole game.
Yeah, you don't want to ghost recruiters either.
Because you're not...
The recruiter's the one you don't want to ghost.
Right, because now you're flagged. You know what I'm saying? Now you're flagged. Because now when another opportunity comes up, or another client is signed and they're looking for the same position at a higher rate, I'm not going to talk to you.
Right.
There's no way, because I don't need you to ghost us again, and I don't need you to ghost the client.
Mm-hmm. Well, so, remember we had the one guy that wasn't going to go on the interview, and then we made him go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we said, listen, you're going on that interview. Or even if you don't want the job or whatever. And I think he came pretty close to taking the job, but then they passed on him. Because what happened was, it was like the reverse effect. He fell in love with the job, and then they found a candidate they felt was better for their needs, which we didn't hope had happened to him. We actually, I think we actually had almost like we were his boss, coaching with him, like, aren't you glad you did that type thing? Like, learn from this experience. At the end of the day, I want to see everybody employed. I don't want to see anybody starving, especially when they're restaurant people, because I'm partial to them, because they're our people.
I mean, and just for that, because we've been in the industry forever, right? And also everything that everybody went through last year with this pandemic. Losing their jobs or furloughed or laid off. I mean, I think we touched it. We touched about this because I was just completely floored how I was reading in the news last year, or just hearing through my network of people, how certain companies were just mass laying off their employees and not finding a way to make things work. Then on the flip side, there was other companies, and I'm not sure if I could say their name, because I really would like to give them a shout out, because they really did a great job with taking care of their employees. They took care of their employees. Like, they could have furloughed their entire workforce, but this one CEO, and I happened to work for him for, for a little bit out in New York City and DC. He really, wrapped his arms around his employees. And what I liked about working for him was that he really valued the people that were working for him. And when I heard what he did with his head office and how he took care of his people, that really hit home. And then on the flip side of that, you hear about these companies who are just like, okay, COVID hit, I can't use it anymore. Goodbye, good luck, and that's it. Boom, done.
Yep.
And it's just like, how do you do that? These people gave their every waking moment to you. They gave their blood, sweat, and tears to your establishment, and you just pretty much said, goodbye, good luck. We don't know what we could do for you. And that was it, and just kind of just laid them off. And they were like, just kind of flapping in the wind going, what do we do now?
Right.
So.
Yeah, there was some of that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting. I think I know the company you're talking about. I'm going to have to Google that and read more about it. I like their product anyway, so they already have me as a customer. Yes,
you do like their product. And it's a great company. I mean, I have my days with them, and I don't agree with some things that they put out there, but when it comes to their employees, they really do take care of them. So I give them props for that.
So yeah, but basically what Christine and I are saying that is don't ghost.
Yeah, don't do
it. To the candidates out there, don't ghost. And you know what? People who are looking for the jobs, don't ghost either, because you and I were just dealing with that.
Yeah,
we're on the flip side. It's like you're constantly crying about how you can't find people, and you got to make sure that if you are in the market looking for the right candidate, that you're vetting them correctly and acting professional and asking the right questions. And it goes back to the old school, treat people. How does it treat people? Your staff with the hospitality you want them to treat the guest.
Exactly.
And that's really what it boils down to. If I said this to you today, to the guy that did that, especially for the place that it was, I said, listen, if I was on the job market right now and he did that to me, he'd have been on my blacklist.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gone again. I wouldn't have cared. I said, the job, let's be honest, it's not a job I would personally take.
Right.
For the level that I'm at, and I know you wouldn't either. It's not a bad job for certain people, depending on where you're at. I'm not knocking it, but I would just be like, F him.
Yeah.
Maybe if it was 2019 and things were normal, maybe not so much when it wasn't the way it is now. But now it's like if I had my run of the litter. And that's the thing that frustrates me when we get feedback from our candidates that we send. Sometimes, we go through the run of the mill with our clients. And we love our clients, but it's like every now and then you just got to say, hey, you know what? When you're pointing the finger at the candidate, maybe you got to look and say, I got 3 pointing right back at me.
Right. Yeah.
To that old saying. And think about what your process is from start to finish, up to the onboarding and through, and then how you're setting them for success to keep those people.
Correct. And I also think employers have an obligation, right? That when you are seeking to fill positions, you need to be on top of your game.
Yep.
And you can't let anything slide, because we know now more than ever, it is very competitive out in this job market right now, because we know that unemployment is ending in September, the enhanced unemployment or the pandemic unemployment, that extra $300 that everybody gets, right? So now people are starting to seek positions, right? And salaries are what they are. They're very exorbitant, these salaries. Like, I wish that, at years ago that we had these types of salaries that they were offering for these positions, right? Because they're above the norm, right? So as an employer, you really need to make a decision. You can't sit on somebody for 2 to 3 weeks.
No. 2 to 3 weeks, they're as good as gone.
Because the candidate is going to say, I don't have time to wait for you. Either you like me or you don't. It's kind of like a first date, right? Mm-hmm. So it's either you want to continue this relationship or you don't. But don't go seek someone else. They're going to seek other people. We know that, right? They're going to see who who their fit is. But provide the feedback. Give us some, give the candidates some communication. Let us know what you're thinking, and be honest in the beginning, right? So when, for all the owners out there or HR people or whoever is hiring us as recruiters, right? Be honest of what your timeline is. Don't say that you need an immediate hire, right? And then we go to work and we get you the candidates that, we feel are the best fit. And you're waiting 2 to 3 weeks to make a decision. If you need an immediate hire, make the decision within a week or so. After we send you, a set of candidates to interview. Because these guys are not going to sit and wait. It's not like years ago. Everybody wants to get back to work. And jobs are filling up very, very quickly for salaried managers right now.
And also, let's be realistic, too. To your point of them sitting on them, and that person, you are not the only person they're talking to. Correct. And you just need to be realistic with that, because we deal with that, too. They want to be like, it was my dream to work at this place, and that's the only thing, and this person has been sitting on the couch until the day you had a job posting. That's not realistic. And we deal with that sometimes, where they're just like, oh, well, they're talking to other people. They are always talking to other people. And so are you.
And let's make it clear, we're not presenting them to 6 different candidates at the same time.
Right.
They're using other recruiters.
They use other recruiters.
Yeah. So
that's what they don't understand. That's something they just need to understand is the norm. But to be fair, like I just said, nobody interviews to fill a role and only speaks to that one person either. That's just the game.
Exactly.
You've heard me say it before. There's rules to a game, and there's how you play the game.
Absolutely.
And that's just the way that it is. And that's never going to change.
Did you see in the news what Chipotle is doing?
No. What's Chipotle doing now? I know New York is getting them for some of their Fair Workweek violations, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I don't think that's what you're talking about.
No, not at all. So Chipotle is leveraging TikTok resumes to help grow its purpose-driven workforce, which I think is pretty smart, because everybody's on TikTok. I'm on TikTok, right? I watch TikTok every night before I go to bed. It's like it's my thing to do. So TikTok resumes have become a thing now, right? It's kind of like back in the day when I was working for TGI Fridays and you had to audition for the bartending position because it was a lot of flair and stuff like that. So I think, I'm comparing it to that, right? So Chipotle is saying, like, due to the competitive labor market, right, they're continuing to experiment with new methods of meeting its potential applicants where they are. They're doing this through TikTok resumes. Chipotle's prospective applicants can showcase their authenticity and true passions in unique ways outside of a traditional resume or sit-down interview, which I think is amazing. Because the reason why I like this is because you get a person's true personality. And social media is so in everybody's face right now. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok is just everywhere, right? You have all different types of generations or age groups like on TikTok right now. It's not just for kids anymore, right? So Chipotle is using that now as a means to find employees. I think it's awesome. I mean, I couldn't have thought of a better way to do it. Like, I think we should do this. I mean, what better than to see someone's true personality to see if it fits the personality of the company by using a social media platform? It's genius as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's definitely on.
And
on to something.
For Chipotle job listings, examples of standout TikTok video resumes, links to TikTok profiles who create career or job related content, and the functionality to apply and submit videos for posted jobs. Fans can access TikTok resumes via the TikTok app or on www.tiktokresumes.com. Candidates must use the hashtag TikTok resumes in their caption when publishing their video resumes. Chipotle's TikTok resume program will be accepting submissions through to July 31st. Now, if you're an hourly employee and you want to go work for Chipotle, I say go for it.
Absolutely. But, I think it's definitely onto the modern points of the way things are being done. I'll be honest with you. I'm shocked to some extent that resumes even still exist.
You know what? I glanced. I'll be honest with you. I mean, and this is what we recruit, right? Like, that's the foundation of our company. I will look at a resume for less than 5 minutes.
Oh, I don't even read the nuts and bolts anymore of what's in it.
You know what I'm saying? And job hopping is such a thing now, right? I mean, I call it job hopping. You know, you'll have somebody there for a year, 6 months, 2 years, and these old school owners, and we encountered it with a client saying, well, this person was with two or three restaurants within the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, and?
What's the problem?
I'm like, you need to understand the backstory. So there's a backstory to that. So if you listen to the backstory and you ask those questions instead of rejecting it right away, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to hire the person. Because job hopping for us back in the day, that was a big deal. Like, you didn't want to have too much on your resume because you just looked like you just wanted to go wherever, you know, the salary was the best, or who knows if you got fired, or, you know, whatever your issue was, right? But nowadays, it's just, it's so out there that people are, I'm with this company for a year to get this type of experience because this is what they offer. And there's never a bad reference either. You know, when we do the extensive reference check, you know, people who've had 2 or 3 jobs within like the last 3 years, or worked for 2 or 3 companies within the last 3 years, we do a reference check and the references are glowing.
Right. And you know, to that point, you know what I also would look for on resumes, Christine, and nothing against private restaurant owners, but I mean, we deal with them, and if they have a long history of the job hopping with a lot of private places, I tend to look the other way.
Yes.
If I have somebody that job top from corporation or chain A that we know from being in the industry is a phenomenal place to work for, and they're there for 9 months to a year, and then they go to corporation B, and we also know that happens to be a phenomenal company, that's a red flag.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. That I agree. That I definitely agree.
But to speak to what we're saying about, you know, how our clients can maybe potentially ghost some of our people, sometimes, you know, restaurant owners do bait and switch sometimes.
Yes.
And and I do look at that, and I'm sorry, that's just not to knock, because those are some, but they're really not our clients, because we would dump people like that, let's be honest. So I don't mind saying it on here. Sometimes they see someone with a sweet resume and they sell them a bill of goods, and the handshake goes in and blah, blah, blah. And then a year later, that person's, you know, working 70 hours a week for peanuts. Yeah. And that's what happens. And after a year, it's got to be on the resume. You know, that's not I actually remember, particularly in the chef world, working with chefs, being like, or chefs, I hate working here, but I got the hell out of here because I've been here too long. I got to make sure I can close the gap. Right. So it's not on my resume that I ever stepped foot in this friggin' place.
Listen, if you looked at my resume, you would be like, really? But you know what? It gave me the foundation, and it gave me the experience for my career.
That's the whole thing too.
Well, my career, you know,
I think you've done well too. And sometimes I think in our industry, someone staying too long is a bad thing, to be honest with you.
Because then you become complacent, because there's a ceiling at some point,
right?
You know, and
even if you're a vice president of operations, it's still like, you worked there 28 years, man. Right? You know, like, are you kidding me?
And those days, like, listen, my dad retired, and he retired 1 year short of the 50-year mark with AT&T. You don't see that anymore.
No, because that's not a thing. I think that companies need, maybe even outside of the hospitality industry, but start to realize that maybe you need to become a company being a great company that people came from, and worry about that.
Right.
And keep your reputation like that. And then if you're a great company, and accept the fact that some things have changed, even with the generations under us, that it's a little bit more transient. And even in the restaurant industry, that's already transient. You know, it's like that. It's like and I'm sure you've had those managers that have worked for you. They don't hire people because they're like, oh, they probably filled out 10 applications today. Like, not everybody who kicks the door and is coming there to be a friggin' restaurant manager, and is gonna put the brand in their blood like you did. You know, so maybe for them, that's the same thing with the managers. Create a good company that they came from, and know that they're going to be there, and they might be there for 5 years, 3 to 5 years. And I think that's a good run these days, to be quite honest with you. I've always said, in the restaurant industry, for managers, it's like dog years. So if you work there for 4 years, in restaurant terms, that's 12 years comparatively. That's kind of how I see it. Yeah. You work somewhere 3 to 4 years, solid on a resume, and it's a good company, I'm attracted to you, because I'm like, okay, something happened where maybe you hit your ceiling, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know what the hell what it is.
And it could also be boredom.
It could be boredom,
right?
It could be boredom.
There's no upward growth because you have people there for God knows how long, and you don't see yourself evolving with whatever company, and that's fine. That's okay.
Right. Or let's be honest, sometimes people bring in directors and they want to bring in their own people. That happens.
Listen, I was with a company that happened twice. And in my tenure with that company, you saw the change of hands twice. Not only does it, if you don't do it the right way, it completely demoralizes the entire company, right? But if you do it the right way, you could kind of have a leg up and have a good go with it. But, I think it's just things have changed so much over the last, I would say, 10, 15 years with regards to how long someone stays and what they want to do with their career and so on and so forth. And I think employers need to really look at that and think of it as it's not a bad thing. Not at all.
It could be, and maybe they're coming into you fresh.
Exactly.
And let's be honest, even with, the upcoming generation, millennials or whatever, they have more of that freelancing type of mentality.
They do.
And there's extensions. They're definitely not doing 50 years like your dad did at AT&T. That's not happening.
No, not at all.
So they're coming in and they're just like, you're gonna get them when they're good. You might get the best 3 years out of them and let them leave on good terms. I tell managers that work for me all the time, listen, if you want to go and you have a better opportunity, go. Leave here on good terms.
Yeah, never burn a bridge. Never ever burn a bridge.
Give your 2 weeks notice. If you're a regular manager, give 2 weeks notice. If you're a GM and that place is running good, give 2 weeks notice. If you know and you want to keep a good relationship, give them 3 weeks notice, maybe. You know what I mean? If you're
I've always given more than 2 weeks, and I've always said that I'm always on hand to jump in where need be. That's how I would leave it.
When I was working for Tiff's and I joined where we met over at Pratt, I was on hand for them a year and a half after I left the friggin' place. I was still going there and running shifts sometimes for them or helping them figure stuff out for the POS and
of course,
blah, 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 but like anything director or above, then I think you've got to give a month these days too. Because you want to give someone time. You don't want to put the screws
because those roles are a little bit harder to fill because of the responsibility level, because now you have like this financial responsibility level. You're managing a P&L, you're managing a group of locations, and you need to be there to onboard the new person coming in. And it's just a whole host of responsibilities that you have. So yeah, it's definitely, you should always give like a month's notice from like district manager and up. That's how I'm.
And don't fade out. Do your job. You're only as good as your last day, in my opinion. Fuck your first. Pardon my French. We'll have to edit that out.
No, it's fine. Who cares? But it's a non-traditional podcast, so I think people already know that. It is what it is with us. We speak with what's on our minds and so on and so forth. But
you're only as good as your last day.
That's it. So coming up next, we're going to talk about how Governor Cuomo has extended the outdoor dining program for all of New York State.
Nice. Yeah, he did. For a year, I think, right?
He did. So New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo on Wednesday, I think of last week, right? Because this was on the 8th. I read this, right? He signed into legislation that he will allow restaurants to continue using public spaces for outdoor dining for another year. And the reason why he's doing this, he's saying, is that by extending the much-needed lifeline that allowed restaurants to use outdoor public spaces for seating during the pandemic, New York is ensuring that these small businesses will be able to continue to use these spaces as they work to rebuild and support the revitalization of the Empire State. So he announced that actually on Wednesday of this week. New York City has already adopted the outdoor dining into a separate permanent program called Open Streets, which I think is great.
Right.
I think it's time that he did something for this industry. And I think extending the outdoor seating for all of New York State is really going to help the industry, because it's pretty much has expanded to another dining room for these guys.
It has. And New York City has grandfathered it in. If you had the permits, you can actually keep it. You just have to renovate there's more building codes. When COVID happened, it was just, hit the ground running, pick up plywood and slap up whatever you can.
Let me tell you something. When I did the outdoor seating permit for Maria over at Prince Umberto in Franklin Square, I'll give her a little plug, right? It was 24 to 48 hour turnaround.
Was it really?
It was that quick. I thought it was going to be weeks, because usually when you go for a permit, it's weeks or months and you have to get all these crazy approvals. And when I called up the Nassau County, the buildings department, I said, what's entailed with getting this outdoor seating permit, due to COVID? He goes, oh, I'm just going to do a site survey. I'm going to pull the file, I guess, of whatever it is. And as long as she has ample, space to do what she needs to do, he's like, I'll give it to you in 24 to 48 hours. The next day, the guy was at the restaurant, walked the space, and literally sat there and wrote down on a piece of paper, like placed all of her tables and said, this is how many people you could have. And basically it was whatever they took away indoor, which I think was 50%. They gave you that 50% back in outdoor dining. So you had your full dining. It was just split into two different spaces, indoor and outdoor. But now these guys get to keep that because they're 100% dining indoors now. And they get to keep, then they have another added extra 50%. Which for her is 8 tables. So, I mean, that's great, and I think any restaurant could capitalize off of that if they do it the right way and they market it the right way.
Capitalize that and nail down that throughput. That's the name of the game.
That's it. That's it.
So, Christine, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.
And filming this podcast. I can't wait for the next one. I think that's tomorrow, right? We're doing it tomorrow in a couple hours.
We actually are. We're doing it with Richard Tier, our regional executive recruiter for the Northeast. Excited to have him on.
King Cutlet.
The Cutlet King of New Jersey.
We're doing that pop-up restaurant with him at some point. I
think we should.
We have to. It'll be fun. I think
we should. I think the way we're gonna design it is gonna be good. But we have a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline for DeVita and Hancock, right? So we have our marketing and web design company launching sooner than we thought. It's going to be some exciting stuff for us. We have the podcast, we have the marketing and web design, and, the recruiting piece. So for everybody out there who's listening, Behind the Counter has been brought to you by DeVita and Hancock Hospitality, Inc. If you guys have any recruiting or consulting needs, give us a buzz. Come and visit us on our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, obviously. Come visit us on our website, www.dhhospitalitygroup.com, or drop us a quick note. Tell us, tell us what you like about the podcast, or just drop in and say hi. And if you have any recruitment needs, email us at connect@dhhospitalitygroup.com.
See you later, everybody. Or hear ya.
Until the next podcast. Good night, everybody.